You're listening to the New York Sports Show, the #1 all New York sports podcast. Hosted by Dominic Konareski.
Hello and welcome to the New York Sports Show, your #1 all New York sports podcast. I'm your host, Dominic Konareski. Calling in from Washington State, we have Aaron on the line. Aaron, hello, you are on.
Hey, how you doing today, man? Excited to be on here. I know like I said, we've been working on this, trying to get me on here for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Bouncing around for topics, so I'm glad to finally be on.
Yeah, happy to have you on, bud. Now, we're going to start off this video talking about the biggest news right now in the New York Yankees organization. Announced about, I would say, 5 to 10 minutes ago, Gary Sanchez, star catcher of the New York Yankees, is sidelined due to the COVID-19 virus. This is probably the 1 millionth case of COVID on the Yankees this season. Overall, it's about the 3rd or 4th case in the past several days. What are your thoughts on this?
It's amazing. There's got to be something that absolutely get into. Like, the last shoot since the All-Star break, really, we've been ravaged with COVID, more so than any other team in the last month. So we come out of the All-Star break, we find out we've lost 3 players to COVID, including Judge and Gio. And then all of a sudden, Cole's got it, Montgomery's got it now, Gary's down with it. It's at least 6 cases now in about 3 weeks. So
it's crazy.
At this point, the Yankees have to look into, where is it happening? Are we wandering out in New York City too much and in the clubhouse? What's going on? We're getting, almost a quarter of the 25, 26-man roster in the last month has tested positive this late in the year.
I know.
So there's something going on that I think that they have to look into and figure out where the source of this is happening.
Yeah, this is not good at all for the New York Yankees. Now, Gary Sanchez, like I said earlier, he's a catcher. Now, overall, catchers aren't known for hitting, but Gary Sanchez is having, I would say, when you look at the stats, he's not having the best season. But as of lately, though, hitting-wise, he is coming around big time. Overall, though, his season stats, through 278 at-bats, he has 60 hits, 17 of those being home runs, and a .216 batting average. Overall, his splits are .216, .329, and .450. And now it's Kyle Higashioka, the career minor leaguer, getting his shot to be the starting catcher for at least 7+ games now. I mean, all props to him. I hope he does a great job. But overall, though, he's batting below the Mendoza line on this season. Through 100 at-bats, he has only a .196 batting average.
Yeah, and I don't think it helps either that we sent Allen down, which makes it sound like we're going to get a lot of Brett Gardner at center field now.
Yeah.
So now you've got 2 guys hitting sub 200 at the bottom of that lineup for at least, like you said, the next 7 games. That's another issue. Just as this team starts to see like it may have been finding its way a little bit. It's outside of the Boston series. We've won a few series. I think we've won every series outside Boston since the All-Star break, and we won the Mariners and Houston Astros series going into the break. So we've actually done very well.
Yes, we have.
Our last 6 or 7 series, and finally seemed to find a little light, a little fire under in our locker room. And all of a sudden we've got Gio's injured again. Then we've got all this COVID going on, and it just seems like no matter what we do, something comes back against us the next day. No matter how good we get or look, we have to do something new every day.
Yeah, you know what? 100%. Yankees have been red hot since that Boston Red Sox series. And you know what? They've having a great past few series. They are catching up big time. And you know what? I feel like they have a shot at winning the ALE. Now, right now, they sit 3rd, 57-49. That's a .538 win percentage. 6 games out from the first place Tampa Bay Rays. But you know what? The Boston Red Sox, 2nd place, they're only a game ahead of us. They are 63-45. That's a .583 win percentage. Now, that's going to be interesting. They're 1 game back. We're 6 games back, so that's a 5-game difference. But you know what? Yankees are in striking distance 100%. This Seattle Mariners series that the Yankees are going to set up to play tonight, that's a 4-game set. if the Red Sox lose the next 4 and we win our next 4, we're only going to be 1 game back on them, and that's huge right there. Wild card standing wise, the Yankees are doing great if they're just going to try to go for a wild card spot. What do you think they're going to get overall?
Yeah, and really, you look at those 2 ninth inning performances that we had against Boston, where we blew leads, and then ultimately lost those games. That's huge right now, because that's a 2-game swing for each of us. If we held on just to ninth inning leads in those 2 games, we'd be sitting a game back, something like that, with Boston right now, instead of 5 games back of Boston and a game and a half back of Tampa. So I mean, those 2 ninth inning performances, those meltdowns we had in the ninth inning coming out of the All-Star break, they really, it gets down to just big moments. If we'd gotten those 6 outs in those 2 ninth innings, we'd be in a totally different boat right now.
100% we would be, and it's really a shame because we've had so many close games. It's really unbelievable, but we just can't come through, and we've blown so many games. Perfect example, you got that Los Angeles Angels game a few weeks ago, 1:30 in the morning, Aroldis Chapman comes in and blows a massive lead, and then the Yankees ended up losing. We just have too many crushing losses like that brings the team's morale down and leads to a mini losing streak, and that's what's killed us this season. Overall, though, the Yankees are only 2 games back on the second wildcard position held by the Oakland Athletics. I mean, 2 games, that's a long distance. But let me just say one thing. The Toronto Blue Jays, they're healthy now. They are on a rampage. They are right behind the New York Yankees. And you know what? I feel like a lot of Red Sox fans, a lot of Tampa Bay Rays fans, and even a lot of Yankee fans, and even maybe some people in the teams themselves are underestimating the Blue Jays, because right now they are playing red-hot baseball right behind the Yankees.
Yeah, I agree. They built themselves a great young offense.
Yeah.
They went out and, last year in free agency picked up the Dodgers starter. They went out and made a trade for starting pitching at the deadline this year. So they're definitely a team that is on the rise. I think they're right, and I agree with you how dangerous they are. I think right now their only fault is their youth in their bullpen. So the young lineup, although it is an amazing lineup, it's going to be one that's going to be one of those lineups that mashes their way through the AL East for years to come. But I think if they can get their bullpen figured out, they're going to be very dangerous in the next, I'd say, 2 years. Even 2023, and Blue Jays could be a very dangerous team in a couple of years if they figure out their bullpen.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think anyone else could have said it better. You put it right on the dot right there. Blue Jays may not be the biggest team this year, but look out, especially in 2023, give them a season in between, and they're going to be one of the teams to beat. And it's going to be interesting to see on how the rest of the ALE does against the Blue Jays, because they have the youth, they have control over a lot of these players till the end of this decade, which could be massive. The Blue Jays could go on a huge playoff appearance and maybe even a World Series winning streak.
Oh, absolutely, they could. I mean, and again, they're just a couple of arms and a bullpen away from being able to get this done. So they're a team that's going to be very scary. And you look at what things we need to do. I mean, we got to figure out Luis Severino. Corey Kluber's 4-week injuries turned into like 2.5 months. And then we got to figure out what Kluber's going to have a contract that's due at the end of the year. He's not going to have a lot of starts under his belt, but he's looked good when we've had him. Do we want to re-sign him? Do we want to bring back Rizzo, which right now I think everybody in New York is a huge yes on.
Yeah.
And then what do we do with Luke Voigt? So we've got some opportunities there to get some things fixed as well. Luke Voigt's a guy that's not going to bring you a ton, but he might get you a good bullpen arm. I mean, people don't think a lot about him, but he did lead the league in home runs in a COVID-shortened season.
100%.
He's got some pop. He can help the team out. And especially if we re-sign Rizzo, then there's not really a need to keep a Luke Voigt anymore. And then, man, if we can get Severino just figured out, and if Kluber can be healthy, I mean, we've got a rotation that could be very dangerous next year if we get some things going, especially with the way the young man that pitched last night for us has turned it around the last 6 or 7 starts as well.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you 100%. Luis Severino, he has to get figured out. Overall, though, it's going to be interesting to see how he comes back, if he's still going to be somewhat his old self, because he was throwing very well right before he got injured. I feel like he's not going to be able to replicate that fully, but I do think he'll be another solid pitcher. Corey Kluber, I would re-sign him, but I would not make him a starter. I would have Corey Kluber come out of the bullpen. I like to compare Corey Kluber these days to Derrick Rose, point guard of the New York Knicks. Derrick Rose and Corey Kluber, they are both two great players that could really bring their team to great extents. But the fact is, too many injuries, and overall they are getting somewhat old for the sport. Relatively, they're not old, but for baseball and basketball, they are old, so they can't go long into games. I would love to have Corey Kluber come out of the bullpen and pitch maybe 2 or 3 innings in relief. He could be a great bullpen guy. I just don't think he has it anymore to be in the starting rotation.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I could see them doing that with Severino this year.
Yeah.
Not long term, but this year, because his arm, he's just not going to have the time now.
Yeah.
Because I think he might be starting his second rehab stint now. He's not going to have the ability to get that arm strength back up to throw 100 pitches by the end of the season when the playoffs roll around. So they might use Severino this year in that exact role you just talked about with Kluber. He might be that guy that comes out and pitches 2 innings, kind of like a Jonathan kid. I can never pronounce his last name, Laguizaga or whatever it may be. But just like he used to be a year ago when he was that guy that would come out and pitch an inning and 2/3, an inning and a third. That's probably going to be Severino's role.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
By September.
Yeah, that would be interesting, because 100%, Luis Severino, he's expected to come up around early to mid-September. That's the butt end of the season. And even if he did, where would you even put him in the starting 5? The starting 5 right now for the New York Yankees is just absolutely going off, especially as of recently. You have James Intalion, you have Jordan Montgomery, who's been coming around. Garrett Cole, it's really hard to say how Garrett Cole has been this season. He's given us a lot of good outings, he's given us a lot of average outings, and then a lot of just poor outings where he could barely even go 5 innings. It's very hard to tell what's going on with Garrett Cole this season. And in a way, I do think it's concerning, because we have a huge contract on him. This could be the same thing as the Giancarlo Stanton contract. He ends up being a quote-unquote acquiring bust, and we can't put him anywhere because of his contract.
Well, and I think with Garrett Cole specifically, because he's that guy that you're never going to put on a pitch count per se. I mean, obviously they're not going to let him throw 120 pitches at the start, but he's that guy that you're not looking to pull a pitch 90. He's got a guy that you just kind of let go because he's your ace. And I was talking with some friends when the season started, and I'm actually surprised we haven't had more injured starting pitching around the league this year. And the reasoning that we talked about was coming off a season that was short by COVID, where virtually no one threw 100 innings.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're going to have to come back and throw 220 innings the next year. That's tough to do. Even for a veteran, that's tough. If a guy gets hurt and he misses a year or only pitches half a season, you never expect him to throw 220 the next year.
Yeah.
And that's kind of with COVID, when everybody threw 80, 90 innings, and now they're supposed to, ratchet it up to 220 again. I think that's kind of what we're seeing with Cole. I'm not saying he's injured, but it could be that dead arm period where his arm's been like, hey, it's been 2 years since I've had to go this far.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that may not be the main reason, but that could definitely be one of the reasons to why he's been somewhat inconsistent this season. Now, overall, the thing that's killing the Yankees is analytics. Analytics-wise, Yankees praise it too much. You have Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner just loving up on the analytics department. And I feel like Aaron Boone does not have a big say of what goes on with the team because it's the analytics department running it. Now, I'm going to say a stat for us before we talk more about that. Last time the Yankees won a World Series, or even was in a World Series, was 2009. 2009. I was only 4 years old then. I'm now 16, so that was a long time ago, folks. Since 2010 to as of last night, the Yankees are the most winningest team in the American League East. They have won 1,124 games and have only lost 768. The Tampa Bay Rays, second winningest team. They are 965 and 825. Yankees have a huge gap, but yet they seem to just fail in the playoffs. What do you think of the analytics aspect?
I think I really think it's killing us. I'm not a fan of analytics. I know it works in certain situations. It's worked very well for Oakland. I mean, they're always competitive. But again, just like you said about the Yankees, Oakland always fails in the playoffs.
Yes.
Obviously, Tampa Bay is a big
Perfect example. Perfect example.
It's just for us. We're not an analytical built team. We don't have when you have a team of home run hitters, then you don't have a lot of guys that are designed to be they hit well against lefties that throw these kinds of pitches or whatever they're looking at analytically. They've got a home run hitting team, and that's tough to almost impossible, I feel, to run analytics with a team like that when you really only do one thing and you hit home runs, and it's tough to design a different lineup every single night. Plus, you don't get guys a lot of chances to get into a groove. I mean, we've talked about it over here ad nauseum about how many opportunities Brett Gardner is getting, and
yes.
I love Brett Gardner for what he did for us earlier, but he's not that guy anymore. It's almost becoming a running joke about how many at-bats this guy gets when he's clearly being outplayed. But it's got to be the analytical department that just looks at it and goes, well, he's going to drive up pitch counts. He's not going to strike out a lot. He's hitting 190. It's time to move on. And I think Aaron Boone, I agree with you. I don't think he gets to make a lot of baseball decisions. And Brian Cashman has alluded to that in several interviews lately. That basically Boone is handed a lineup card every day, and that's just, to me, that's ridiculous.
It is. Aaron Boone is the manager. He should be managing the team. Brett Gardner. The only thing I like about Brett Gardner these days, now he's a career Yankee. Only team he's played on was with us in the 09 World Series. If you look at it stat-wise, he's in the top 25 of best Yankees of all time. But none of that matters right now. Frankly, to put it in any better words, he sucks. I think that's the best way to put it. He's batting 197 through over 200 at-bats. He should not be in the starting lineup daily. Only plus side of having Brett Gardner on your team is that he never gets injured. When do you ever see Brett Gardner get injured? But these days, that's it. He can't hit. He could barely draw a walk these days. He's somewhat fast. Defensively, he doesn't dive for the ball anymore. He allows those many one-hops that give other players so many hits. I just think he's just born out.
I agree, and that's why I think where analytics is even driving our decisions on not just the lineup card day to day, but even on the roster. Like the Allen kid just got sent back down.
Yeah.
And that's got to be an analytical decision, because when you watch him play, and again, I'm not pretending at all that he's the greatest center fielder we've ever had, but he's clearly better than Brett Gardner.
Oh, 100%.
Brett Gardner has no more trips to be used down to the minor leagues by any means.
Yeah.
But he's clearly playing at a starting center field level for the New York Yankees. But the analytics department, they just seem to have this love of Brett Gardner and what they think his bat can do, which maybe you could do that 6 years ago.
Yeah.
But there's no
this wasn't 6 years ago.
The eyeball test, watch Ian Allen play center field, there's a huge difference.
Huge. I think the biggest thing with all the young guys right now in the New York Yankees organization, I would bring them up. Make some room, even if it's just 2 roster spots in the MLB. They don't need to play every day, but the fact is, by you bringing them up, you're trying to make the playoffs right now. Those young guys, Greg Allen, Estevan Florial, all those guys, they're gonna be trying to get a roster spot in the MLB for next season. They're gonna be going crazy. They're gonna be giving their 1,000%, and you know what? They could do way better than what Brett Gardner is doing right now. I've never seen a guy look at so many pitches right down the middle, and then he looks mad at the umpire like it's the umpire's fault. Brett Gardner, he doesn't have any more. I love the guy. He did a lot of great things with the Yankees, but even when you look at it career-wise, he's a .256 career hitter. He never was known for his bat, but yet he's been in the MLB for 14 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things with the Yankees in their lineup and the things that they have. Like you said, start bringing up young guys and push. Those 2 young guys that pitched, the starter and the kid that came out in the 7th inning in Game 2 against Baltimore, they were throwing 100-mile-an-hour gas each. And making their major league debuts. That's an example of some young men that we could use. Bring
100%.
them up and use them. But for whatever reason, our analytical department's going to keep bouncing around and wanting to use other pitchers and other things. And it's just amazing to me to see the lineups we have and to see some of the pitching decisions we make. It just blows my mind. And there's no way that that's Aaron Boone, who is a lifelong fourth-generation baseball guy who's making these decisions.
No way.
No way he's making, because he wasn't making these kinds of decisions when they were winning 100 games a year with him. So this has got to be something where the lineup card and pitching rotations, and in terms of who's pitching in what situations out of the bullpen, has got to be egged on or drawn up by the analytical department on who should be in what situation facing which kind of batters, rather than having your baseball manager who's been in the game his entire life make baseball decisions. Because it's driving me nuts watching this team. But those two young men that came up and pitched Game 2 of Baltimore, the starter and the first reliever, that's an example of how deep this minor league system is.
Yeah.
If you would just let baseball be played by the baseball people.
Exactly. Luis Gil, the minor leaguer that started for the Yankees in the Baltimore game, he's actually going to be pitching this Sunday, so they're bringing him back up, and I think that's going to be great. Overall, I think the biggest thing that worries me is the only reason why he was in the minors for so long is because he did not have great control. So it makes you wonder how his control will be against the Seattle Mariners. Of course, he did an amazing job against the Baltimore Orioles. He had a historic debut. But how is he going to be in his second start now? I think that's going to be the biggest thing. He may surprise us and allow a 4+ on 1, so maybe he's going to be lights out again.
No, I agree with you. I saw that his numbers when they showed him in the first inning of his start, and you can see he's definitely a strikeout pitcher.
Yeah.
As was the second man that came out of the bullpen. But I think they both had a high walk total for their innings pitched.
Yes.
It reminds me a little bit of what Betances was, and why it took so long to get Betances out of the minor leagues. Because I remember Betances one year had almost a 1-for-1 K to walk ratio in Double-A baseball. He had 91 Ks and 88 walks or something crazy like that.
Which is crazy.
You mentioned that, and it makes me immediately think of a Betances, where they just got to learn how to control, how to get people out, and not be wild and not overthrow, and then they're going to be just fine. I mean, look what Betances became for 4 or 5 years out of our bullpen once he figured it out. So control issues, I could totally understand that with a 23-year-old kid going 100 miles an hour. But man, if that kid can get that control issue under control, he's got an electric arm.
Oh yes, he does. Yes, he does. That's going to be interesting this Sunday's game. Hopefully, all the COVID cases go away and the Yankees don't have any more the rest of this season. They reminded me of the 2019 Miami Marlins and late 2019, early 2020 when they had all the COVID cases. That was crazy.
I remember that. I remember there was a moment where they in St. Louis had 8 games played and everybody else was up at 20, 25 games.
Yeah, it was crazy. And you know what? The Yankees are very, very lucky that it's not exactly like that situation. Because you know what? They've had enough. They've had more than enough to have a lot more games postponed. I think they've only had 1 or 2 games postponed that they already made up due to all the COVID cases. But the Yankees have caught a lot of lucky breaks. If they want to make the playoffs, whether it's winning the ALE or making the wild card, they gotta win the next 2 or 3 series. They gotta win. I think that's a must right there. Of course, you want to go out and win every series, but the next 2 to 3 series is going to be very, very big on how the New York Yankees rest of the season will go. Because right here, Seattle Mariners, 4-game series, win 3 out of the 4.
I agree with you, especially with and I never thought in my lifetime, I'd say, other than the late 90s, early 2000s when the Mariners were really good, and we seem to play them in the playoffs every year. This is a huge series because they're, half a game, maybe a game back of us. So, yeah, you're right. If we can go out and take 3 out of 4 and put them a good 3-4 games behind us, and then now it's, pushing mid-August, and they start to have to feel the pressure of 6 weeks to go and already 5 games behind us, plus however many games out of the number 2 wildcard spot. Anytime you get a chance to put a team away so they can start focusing on what's in front of you, that's always a huge plus, because it's going to be really hard to keep focusing on Oakland and Boston ahead of us in the wild card if we've got teams in the AL West that are nipping at our heels as well. We've got to get some distance, and then we can start putting away games and catching up on people in front of us. So this is a huge series for us starting tonight. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Yankees 2 games back, Toronto. They actually passed the Seattle Mariners the other night. They're on a 2-game winning streak, the Toronto Blue Jays. They are 3 games back, and then the Seattle Mariners also 3 games back as well. So let's say the Yankees lose tonight, and Toronto wins, and then of course Seattle would win if they beat us. There would be, if depending how things go when it comes down to winning percentage, there could possibly be a 3-way tie for the one spot outside of the wild card, and then the Yankees 100% got to win their series then, because like we said earlier, the Toronto Blue Jays are very dangerous right now.
Right, absolutely. So we'll see, man. It's going to be a big one starting tonight. So we should be okay. I'm excited to see the young man pitch again on Sunday. I don't know what we're throwing on, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to get this series going. It's going to be a huge one.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. So tonight you got Nestor Cortez on the mound, ERA below 2, still looking for his first win, and that's only through just 30-plus innings, but this guy has been electric. It's going to be fun. Well, Aaron, thank you for joining us here on the New York Sports Show. Very happy to have you on.
Absolutely, thank you. I had a lot of fun. It was good being on. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.